I think when we talk about resilience, part of the conversation revolves around not just resilience, but adaptability. How do you assess situations? How do you think critically about situations? And sometimes part of it is understanding your own strengths and your own capabilities. When we talk about resilience, it's how do you face, for me, it's how do you face challenges? How do you face the challenges of running a business, of being part of an operation, of being part of a large team?
Welcome to episode 23 of the FoodGrads Podcast, the podcast where we explore careers in the food, beverage, and hospitality industries. I'm your host, Veronica Hislop, a molecular science graduate student and career partner with FoodGrads. On this week's podcast, I interviewed chefs Warren Ford and Riley Bennett, professors and course coordinators at George Brown College in Toronto, Ontario. Today, they are here to introduce the college's unique Honors Bachelor of Commerce Culinary Management program, which combines foundational culinary skills with operational skills like accounting, finance, operations, and food theory. Ford and Bennett spent this episode talking to me about this exciting program and how it prepares students for multiple career paths after graduation. So when you take this program, you're not just limited to careers that are in the kitchen, such as being a chef, but it also teaches other things that will be very useful that you could really take with you to all different aspects of the industry, whether it's in operations, product development, research, all those types of things. This program will cover it. The two of them stress that the restaurant industry is resilient and we are going to see a lot of new things come up post-pandemic, so keep your eye open for that because we're going to see a changing landscape. Talking about this just makes me so much more pumped to go out and check out a patio because in the area that I live in, the patios are finally open, so that's a good thing to see with the restaurants. Anyways, before we dive into this episode, I will mention that at the time of releasing this, there are still spots open for the September 2021 semester. So if you are interested, check out the links to this episode and you can find out information there. So let's get into it. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm excited that I have two more guests that are coming over from George Brown College, but we're going to be talking about a different program at George Brown. And today, I'm not going to be the one talking to you about it. Let's get our guests. So thank you so much, Chef Ford and Chef Bennett, for coming on the show.
Thank you, Veronica.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Looking forward to sharing our program with you.
Like the last program that I was talking to with Caitlin and Lori in regards to their program, the food studies one, today we're going to be talking about a commerce program. So would one of you be able to provide a broad description of the program we're going to be talking about today and what it entails?
Yeah, I don't mind starting us off, Veronica. We are instructors and coordinators with the chef school, and we oversee Bachelor of Commerce culinary degree program. It's an honors culinary degree program that not only focuses on the basics of culinary in terms of understanding knife usage, food terminology, techniques, but we also focus on a range of other topics that are pertinent and applicable to the food service and culinary world. So we look at operations, we look at human resources, we look at marketing, we look at gastronomic theory, we look at the economics of what makes the food and culinary industry work.
Wow. So it does sound like it's a really unique program that's going to encompass a lot more, because I know when a lot of people I talk to, I speak about George Brown College, we think about straight up a lot of times chef school, you have a lot of that type of coursework, but it seems that this program is definitely a unique one that is going to be exploring so many different things that it takes to be in the culinary world, because you're not just limited to your skills in terms of being in the kitchen, but there's so much more that goes to the restaurant industry and everything as a whole.
There's a lot that goes into culinary, and really when I was getting into being a chef and running food service operations, a lot of what I learned was on the job and on the go sort of thing. But, we really try and apply some of those skills and learning and understanding of running a kitchen, running an operation managing a variety of operations, and we try and embed that into our program. Chef Bennett, you want to jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the 4-year program, as Chef Ford said, it combines a lot of the professional kitchen management training that you would get if you were taking our 2-year diploma. So you're not losing out on any of the skills necessarily that are really important and really pertinent for the industry. Once you do graduate, you are actually accumulating quite a bit more skill sets, because not only are you learning about foundational and advanced culinary skills, but you're also learning the business part of it. So the finance, communication, revenue management, and the concepts that are typical of commerce degrees, but specializing in the culinary management part, which is really important for any business to understand.
Sorry, for someone who, for a new student, just hearing the word commerce, that might be a confusing word in itself. So could you maybe just explain a little more about what that means, just for someone to get a better picture?
Absolutely. So for commerce is sort of defined as, well, not necessarily defined, but it's business. So it's looking at the business aspects within a specific industry. So in this case, specializing in culinary management. However, it does touch on the finance, the economic, the communications, and the revenue management concepts that are typically found within a commerce degree. What this program is looking to do is give those specific tools to culinary students within the kitchen, giving them the tools to explore further on those specific elements and give them the basic and the advanced type of skills that they need in order to run a sustainable business within the culinary industry.
Okay, so that makes more sense. And I love that it's directed, again, specifically with a lot of students, if they go to universities, they get like you said, a bachelor's degree in commerce, but that's just applies to everything. But this degree is going to be much more tailored to those individuals looking to, if they just have a vague idea, I'd like to go into the food industry, because from our conversation that we had prior to recording is that this program is going to open a lot of doors that aren't going to just limit to someone to working as a chef. So before we get into what you could do after you graduate the program, I'm starting to get curious. You kind of touched upon it, but what is the coursework going to look like for 4 years for a student that's entering this program?
So the first 2 years of the program are focused on the basic and advanced culinary skills, which mirrors our 2-year culinary management diploma, with the addition of foundational business, accounting, and service-focused courses. The final 2 years are heavily focused on the business, finance, nutrition, and introductory food science concepts of the degree, as well as 2 capstones in their final year, which is really exciting. One of the capstones is academically focused, where students choose a topic about an issue in the industry and develop a major research paper on that topic, discussing the issue with advanced research and writing skills. And then the other capstone is the culinary black box, where students are challenged to cook 3 to 4 courses within 2 hours using only advanced culinary skills. And in this class, they focus on menu development using accurate, sustainable menu practices, recipe development, as well as ordering.
The other thing I would add, Veronica, is the first 2 years of the program, like we said, are similar to the 2-year diploma. However, as Riley mentioned, in the last 2 years, you start to take a little bit more focused and advanced approach. And the last 2 years are really start to dive deep into the marketing and the research and the food science aspect of culinary, and why food does what it does, why operations need to focus on, say, revenue management or cost control, understanding the risk behind taking a certain direction in terms of marketing research or a marketing tactic. So this is where our degree really starts to, I guess, make a difference and shed some light for future professionals in this industry on certain things to watch out for, because a lot of people have started restaurants without that knowledge and without that background, and they've found it a struggle. But our hope is that if students decide to take an entrepreneurial approach, they would have some of this base knowledge and be able to apply it in a real world setting.
Now, I assume when the program was being developed in these courseworks that there was a lot of, looking into the industry to like what you just said, where I know a lot of people, they start with the passion of the food and that will take you far. But if you don't have that background, the finances, how to costing all these types of things that it makes your life a lot more difficult and it can be a struggle. So I can see that the college part of me has really taken the time to really define the coursework, and that is really cool.
Absolutely. We're very, very lucky to have smaller class sizes as well, have a state-of-the-art facilities, and also, with tying in the business piece to the applied hands-on approach to the kitchen is really fantastic.
With this program, we've been speaking about it in terms of what the coursework is, but I'd be curious about the types of students and what they could be expecting after they graduate. Like, what type of jobs does this open the doors to?
I think that our program really creates a wide variety of opportunity for our students. So whereas, students maybe coming into the program might think, yeah, I want to be a chef, I want to be a cook, and really get to know the industry. As they progress, they might realize that, you know what, I like the kitchen, I enjoy cooking, but maybe I don't want to be a chef. Maybe I want to focus on research. Maybe I want to focus on food development or product development. So we've had students come through who have actually started to look at ways that they can be their own entrepreneur and be their own business person within the food industry. So, in terms of opportunities, there's that entrepreneurial aspect. There's opportunity to be involved in product development, food research, looking at a variety of operations from hotel to restaurants to institutional food service. I think that's great in terms of, having that broad spectrum of opportunity.
That's great. I know that obviously with this podcast that I've been doing, that I've been speaking to so many different people in the food industry, but many of the people that I talk about come from university bound. But that's like another great thing about the food industry is that there's so many walks of life, but having this degree program like we've been speaking about to be able to combine, because one thing that I find interesting is, again, I think of George Brown as being very practical, which is great, but it sounds as though this program's adding more of the thought process, the thinking, hearing about the capstone project, about doing, a research project on something of a topic that interests you. That's not something I would expect to come out of a program like this.
Well, that's one of the great things about our programs, that we allow students to sort of develop that thought process and develop that, method of critical thinking, to look at scenarios, look at different case studies, and how do you apply the knowledge that you're gaining and think about it in a critical way and then come up with solutions. Riley's capstone project and his black box are great examples of that, and that's really like a build-up, getting to that stage where they can, sort of adapt and think on their feet and use some of that knowledge.
Absolutely. And also look at it from the standpoint of the students get to express their interest in their research. And a lot of times what happens is it ties into what they would like to do with their future. A couple of students currently are going to be going into university. I've applied to University of Guelph and are going to be attending University of Guelph afterwards. That wrote research papers on mental health within the industry and the current issues that we are facing, as well as diversity, which was actually really impactful because they were able to dig deep into a topic that they truly cared about and that was really close to them.
I love that. That's, these are definitely important issues that are really getting the light that they needed. And I do think, given our current situation with the pandemic, that it really has shone such a huge light on the restaurant industry. And that actually does make me think about, a tough question that I don't mean to ask, but I'm curious, is that here in Canada, especially in Ontario, we've seen how the pandemic has really affected the restaurant industry. And for students wanting or thinking about their future paths, if they should go into this industry, I would be curious about why you would think that it would still be a good idea for someone to attend a program like this.
So that's a great question, Veronica, and I think a lot of people will be asking that question because before the pandemic, there were many challenges and issues in the restaurant that they were constantly facing. So now that the pandemic has hit, it's also opened up, many more, a lot more awareness around other issues that the industry does face. So within challenges comes a lot of opportunity. And I think that looking at it from an opportunity, creative, entrepreneurial mindset, the ability to adapt is one of the most important parts, where within our curriculum, we had to adapt very quickly to create and start to work with students on different business models within their assessments. I also heard from colleagues and friends within the restaurant industry that were collaborating between one another, where 4 restaurants were coming together to create one curbside pickup in an innovative, creative way in food delivery models that we would have never thought about if the pandemic didn't happen. So looking at it, and also with e-commerce, I think e-commerce is something that is going to be a big part of the culinary industry too. And I think it'll be great to see the opportunities that start to sort of bloom and flourish after the pandemic is over. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are really looking forward to getting into restaurants and eating again.
Well, that was going to be part of what I was going to say, and Riley's absolutely correct. There's going to be opportunity, and what I've tried to encourage students to do is look on the flip side of the pandemic. What's going to happen post-pandemic? Yes, restaurants are going to open up again. Businesses are going to start to flourish again. But you're going to have a customer base that really right now we're sitting on pent-up demand. And once things start to open up, you're going to see that flood of people that are going to be on patios, are going to be in restaurants, dining out. And, this is part of the opportunity. So for students getting into culinary, or looking at the industry and thinking that, maybe there's not so many jobs in the culinary industry. That might be true now, but, come flip side of the pandemic, there's going to be high demand for quality staff that have this type of education, that have this type of knowledge, and bringing it into kitchens so that they can take advantage of future opportunities and create a new sustainable model for operations.
Both of you touched on 2 different things that I've been thinking about a lot recently, with the first of one being, I just want to go to a restaurant and eat. Like, at the end of the day, that's simply it. Like, I was with my family last weekend and I was just like, I just want to go out to a restaurant and eat somewhere and just have that atmosphere, that upbeat, like, have a server come, enjoy the food that I'm not making. Like, I think a lot of people miss that, and I never realized how much going out to restaurants was a part of my life until obviously it's been taken away. And I think that a lot of people feel the same way. I mean, it's such an easy way to catch up with friends, to just, hey, let's meet up at this restaurant instead of going to someone's house. Like, let someone else take care of it. And that's the best part about going to a restaurant is, having that atmosphere come to you and you just sit there and enjoy.
Absolutely. And having cooks and culinarians and educated chefs that are willing to step into those roles is going to be key to the success and longevity of the industry at some point. With restaurants have closed and restaurants have shut their doors, but at some point that's opportunity as well. Those restaurants are going to be opened again in maybe a new type of food or something, but it's opportunity. It's going to be an opportunity, and we talk about that in classes as well.
Right. And as well, with shifting to something that Chef Bennett had said as well, with shifting the model for food, like at the end of the day, everyone needs to eat, whether it's in a restaurant or at home. And with the pandemic, there's new opportunities such as kitchens that, you can have multiple, one person can get pasta from this restaurant and then another person can get their, I don't know, let's say tacos, all from the same combination of restaurants on the same strip. So these types of new models never would have came before, but it's also an opportunity for like you said, for people to build businesses where, maybe they have a product, they sell their own tomato sauce brand, and people are wanting to more so hear the story rather than getting it from these larger corporations where we just have, the Unilever and these large brand names. So this program also sounds like, because it's going to give the combination of the two, that it can shift our mindsets and how we consume our food.
Right.
And it's
Absolutely, Veronica. I mean, it actually triggered a thought once you mentioned that about the tomato sauce that you're jarring up and able to have a one-stop shop sort of retail business model that's a few restaurants have gone to. And one of the cool things about the program as well is one of the final in the fourth year is a research and development class where the students actually create their own line of preserved products that they look into marketing it. They look into costing it. They make sure that it is healthy and safe. So it kind of ties into that piece where it's not only about a restaurant now it's about what else can you provide as a value added or a service added experience for your guests, whether it's in their home or whether it's at your restaurant.
Man, I chose the wrong program. Maybe I'm like backtracking why I took chemistry. I should have gone to something like this, because it just sounds like there's so many hands-on, real tangible skills that you're learning. And one of the other things that I was thinking about is, does this program we've talked about doing like research projects, but I'm curious if there's any like experimental learning or co-op or those types of things sprinkled throughout the program.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have two work placements, which are called work integrated learning, and they equal up to almost 1,000 hours of work experience. So it's actually 980 hours, 490 hours per work integrated learning experience. The first I'll call it Will, is actually the foundational culinary piece where students go to restaurants, and they're both paid experiences. So the students go into restaurants and they learn about the foundational skill sets that it takes to understand how a restaurant runs by cooking on the line, and also by cooking in a very introductory role in the restaurant or the hotel environment. The Will 2, or the Work Integrated Learning Co-op 2, is an experience that's personalized, that the student can either go into focusing on their entrepreneurial venture that they were looking at doing further research into, or they can look at working with GBC, Start GBC, which is another resource that we have available within the college, where they can continue to work on or start to develop entrepreneurial or research around their entrepreneurial ideas. Or the third one is they can go into more of an advanced kitchen position or a front of house position, focusing more on the management part of the industry or the operation.
Well, that's great. I know for me, when I did co-op throughout school, it sounds like your program's great, but doing the co-op was one of my favorite things because it really brought everything together. And I'm not going to lie, having some money as well really is helpful when you're going to school. So it's great to know that it's also not like a high. For example, at my school, we required 4 different co-op terms in order to satisfy it, but this program only requires 2. And it does sound like you can really take it in so many different ways that could really complement. And what it really seems like the theme of this program is to really tailor it to what works best for you.
Absolutely. Everybody's going to have a different drive and a different passion and sort of a different focus on what they see their future as. And I find that even when the students arrive in year 3 and they arrive in year 4, what they really want to do changes throughout each of the years throughout the program. So usually when students come in the first year, they're not sure. By year 2, they start to understand, the concepts and sort of what the industry is. And then year 3, they start to realize that maybe I want to go into recipe development, maybe I want to go into consulting, or maybe I want to go into the restaurant industry and become a chef. So then they can start to, like you said, tailor their way through the 4th year and sort of 3rd and 4th year and sort of take control of where they see their future. and then do further research with the resources that George Brown has to offer, and from Chef Ford and myself.
Yeah, for me, it's kind of interesting to see how students evolve when you first get them in year one. They're a little bit, green sort of thing. And, they're excited about being in the program and, taking all the food courses and whatnot. And then to see conversations start to change, to move, some students might be moving away from the kitchen and, start having conversations around research development, around running an operation or being in the industry in a capacity that doesn't involve necessarily being in the kitchen. So yeah, it's interesting to see how some of the conversations evolved. And then by the time they get to year 4, Riley and I sometimes get excited to see what it is that they're actually interested in. So like one student in her 3rd year, we were having a conversation and she said that she's really interested in food research now. And I was actually quite impressed, because she had come through kitchens and been in restaurants and that. And now when she got into the research component of the course, that's when I guess she really started to find her passion. And now she seems like she wants to run with it.
That's awesome. And it sounds as though with the two of you being so involved in the program that it almost sounds like you get to watch these students grow throughout the 4 years. I'm assuming you get a lot of contact with them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, quite a bit. And it is really exciting to see that. And it's really, I enjoy it. It actually inspires me for the last 4 years because they're so driven on what they want to do when they finish that. It's more, we start to facilitate their sort of, we start to facilitate with how we can support them to get there. So it shifts from this, educational teaching foundational piece into, these self-driven, motivated, future leaders that we're looking to have in the industry.
As well, prior to when we were speaking before, again, this is to attest to you seeing these students develop and all that. One of the things that you've mentioned that this program is really going to help teach students is the idea of resilience and becoming more resilient. And I wanted to kind of get into that a little bit more and what you mean by that and how is this program teaching that?
I think when we talk about resilience, part of the conversation revolves around not just resilience, but adaptability. How do you assess situations? How do you think critically about situations? And sometimes part of it is understanding your own strengths and your own capabilities. When we talk about resilience, it's how do you face challenges? How do you face the challenges of running a business, of being part of an operation, of being part of a large team? When I talk about resiliency, we're all going to have a challenge to deal with in our roles, whether it's as the chef, the sous chef, the F&B director, whatever it might be. What I've tried to tell students is that you're going to run into situations, because every situation is different, but you're going to run into situations that are going to challenge you. They're going to challenge your thinking. You're going to run into people that are going to do the same thing. So how do you manage that? And I think that is also one of the keys that try and focus on. How are you going to manage those challenging staff members? How are you going to manage those challenging colleagues? How are you going to manage that customer or client if you're doing a banquet or running a catering operation? How are you going to manage that client that all of a sudden says, oh, my numbers went from 100 to 200? How are you going to manage that in terms of resiliency, in terms of ordering and staffing and looking at all the different intricacies that come with operations? I tell students that a lot of what you're going to experience in the food industry and the culinary industry, almost half of it is going to be surprises. So how do you deal with those surprises?
Absolutely, Warren. And just to add on, for me, it's about the ability to adapt and embrace growth while under pressure. Right. So the pandemic currently is a prime example of what do you do? How do you adapt, and what kind of experiences and what kind of examples can we give the students to see how they would adapt to a situation like that, and then work with them to be able to think critically and analyze critically about how to turn that around into an opportunity to create a sustainable operation.
But just to piggyback on that, Riley, like that's everything you said is just absolutely like so true. But then to make a decision on that, because,
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
What kind of decision-making process do you go through? The pandemic is probably going to be one of the biggest surprises any restaurateur has ever faced. So what sort of decisions do you make after that analysis, after that critical thinking, in order to sustain your business or adapt your business?
Absolutely, Warren. Absolutely. And the steps to go through to make those decisions, the proper steps to get there.
Right.
So it does sound like some of the coursework I know thinking is about, it sounds like the course will help provide that framework to help you get that critical thinking skills, because it is a skill that has to be developed over time.
No, for sure. And, we discussed that. There's a course called Advanced Strategic Communications. So we discussed some of that in terms of communicating at a higher level, let's call it a managerial level. Students also have to take a course centered around risk management. So how do you assess a possible risk to your business and then make decisions or make contingent decisions in order to move forward? They have human resources focused courses. They have food research. So yeah, all of that comes with being able to make a decision in some way, shape, or form. And, again, that's sort of setting them up for their capstone and their fourth year, because, they will have to make decisions around those sorts of things. They will have to assess the economy, as it were, and say, okay, is this going to be the best strategy for my product or my operation?
Speaking to these, and it's great that you're going to have these courses that are going to, again, address, because communication is so key, but is this program also going to address other types of issues? Because we talk about surprises, but there are issues that are currently going on in the food industry, which, in like we talked about, maybe like diversity or in terms of sustainability. Is there any other food issues that are going to be talked about in this course that can better prepare graduates?
I think, Chef Bennett and myself, we're always looking at opportunities to include real world issues within culinary in our courses. How can we bring those conversations to light in a way that allows for all students to take part in? And we also have chats with the rest of our team, and the team as well does their best to incorporate issues within the industry as it's happening now. Like I constantly scan the newspaper sometimes just to see what's in there in terms of food and how is it evolving and how is it changing or what's making an impact. We're always trying to see how our industry is evolving, because it's not static. It has changed. It has evolved from, the traditional sense of, I guess, cooking school. And we are, I guess, to another level in terms of cooking school, business, operations, communication. There's so many elements within food service that could be addressed. Sometimes we discuss, okay, what else can we discuss? What else can we talk about? It's kind of interesting to see what else we can embed in the course.
And, within the sustainability piece, sustainability is such a complex topic as well. And the restaurant industry and the food service industry is probably one of the biggest X factors when it comes to sustainability, just because of the supply chain issues, the different food policies, how food policy and politics affect price, sustainability around overfishing. These are all topics that I've added into courses to make sure that the students do understand that sustainability, that topic, is a complex issue that constantly needs to be addressed, and can be addressed in many different ways and can be looked at in many different ways as well. But also, diversity and equality and equity, those are a part of it as well. But within the classes, within the first year courses, we've added a food literacy course, which is going to blend with the food studies program. We've also just added in a sustainability and food service course that's going to be added into year number 3, which is really exciting because it's going to touch on a lot of these topics and a lot of these issues. So not only will the students understand the importance of the business piece around the financial sustainability and also the economic, but also around the environmental sustainability piece, which we need to be mindful of, because us as chefs, it's really important that we make the right decisions that are not only for our guests around nutrition and health, but also around sustainability and the future of our supply chain and our food systems overall.
It's pardon me.
Sorry.
No, I'm the one catching up on words, but
I can talk about that forever. Sorry.
No, it's an exciting time to be in this. It's a scary, but it's also an exciting time to see how fast the food industry is moving and all those types of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you two have been able to get so involved with a program like this and be able to be, mentors and teachers and all that to this next set of people going into this industry. And it just makes me wonder from your perspective about why you love being at George Brown.
Go ahead, Chef Ford.
Okay.
I kind of just threw that one out there because no,
that's a great question.
I thought it was a better way than asking, can you provide a background of what you do at George Brown? I was like, let's just get into there.
Why do I love being at George Brown? I think for me, it's the opportunity to take my knowledge. Like, I've been in kitchens since I was, 17, 18. Been running kitchens, for the last 20 years. Kitchens have been part of my life for 30 of my years. And, for me, it's an opportunity to, one, impart knowledge to future chefs, future culinarians who are passionate about this industry, engage in discussion. It's really inspiring when talk with up and coming chefs about their experience, about what they've experienced as a child when they were cooking or cooking with their parents or their grandmothers, and how that translates into their own passion for food and their own passion for the industry. For me, it's a way to stay connected to the industry. I haven't run a kitchen in, it's been about 6-7 years now. I haven't run a kitchen, but I feel connected with the industry still. I get to, sort of research different ideas, express different ideas. And as well, the people I work with, I get to, we get to collaborate on ideas and have discussions around food. And like, for me, as much as we know as chefs, there's still so much to learn. There's still so much to explore. When the degree started, we had a course set of courses, but you see Riley was able to add another course to the program. There's still another course or another element of culinary that we wanted to that we've discussed that we're thinking to embed somewhere. Thing is, we just have to find where to put it. So that's kind of a challenge as well. But and to see the degree program evolve. When we started from year one, we were just sort of put in there, and it's like, okay, here we go. Which direction are we going? Well, we weren't really sure, and now I feel like we're kind of setting our own direction now and setting a path forward for the program, as well as students coming through the program.
So I was born and raised in British Columbia. I grew up on a farm. I started working in my family restaurant when I was 11 years old. First time I helped butcher a pig with a butcher, I was like 13 years old. And my passion was always there for the restaurant industry. And then at a young age, I moved to Alberta and took the culinary program there, and then just started to travel and I competed in Singapore, and I worked in Vancouver Island, worked across Canada. I went down south for a little bit. So I was able to travel. But one thing that was always missing, you get to this point as a chef where you start to feel that you've gained a lot of experience and you've gained a lot of growth. What to do with it down the road, what is the point of getting all of this experience when you can't share it? And I'm not saying, and by no means am I saying that I have a ton of experience. There's way more people out there that have so much more than me, but I just was really excited about sharing it. And I always think about, I'm chef by trade, but teacher, professor by passion. And I just really enjoy giving back. And when I started at George Brown about 10 years ago, I've been able to really professionally and personally grow, where I was able to get further credentials, do an MBA in sustainable commerce, and start to really hone in on becoming just a great teacher and giving back to the students, and allowing for them to take the knowledge that I'm able to give to them that I've learned, and take that and flourish with that as much as possible. There's always learning involved. There's always challenges, but with challenges, I love challenges. I love progressiveness. I love change. And I think within George Brown and working with a team like Chef Ford and everybody in the team at George Brown and the Chef School is really amazing, because we're always looking for that next step and that next great thing that we can do to provide a better experience for the students overall within all the programs.
Well, I love that, and I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully we've convinced a few students, or more than a few. Like, again, I wish I was back debating on my degree, because this would sound like such an amazing one to go into. But
it's never too late, Veronica. No.
I'm thinking about graduate school, so maybe it might be a little. Well, I'm
kidding. Yeah.
I might not want to be into school for like 12 years now at this point. That might be a little too much. But regardless, I hope that this conversation will encourage some other students who are earlier on, or even other people who aren't just students, or people who want to go into this industry, to get in there, because this was a great conversation. But before we go, because we never actually spoke about this, how do we find out more information about the program, and how do we apply?
You can go to our website, georgebrown.ca, and you can look up our program, Honors Bachelor of Commerce. The code is H315. If you're a student who has graduated from a culinary program within Ontario, 2-year culinary diploma, you can apply for our bridge program, which would be H316. And if you're successful with the bridge program, then you would step into the 3rd year of the culinary degree program.
Excellent. And I'll make sure to link everything in the show notes so everyone can get a hold of that, because I think we are going to get some people who are interested. So once again, thank you, Chef Bennett and Chef Ford, for coming on the show. This was a really fun episode for me to learn more about you, and just, again, share this program, because I think more people need to know about things, these programs that have had so much thought and put into them, in terms of really preparing people for the next wave of what our food industry is. And I'm really excited. And I'm excited to just get back in the restaurant and have you guys feed me.
Amazing. Thank you for having us, Veronica.
That was episode 23 of the FoodGrads podcast. All the notes to this podcast can be found on the FoodGrads website by clicking the podcast tab on the homepage. There, you can find the notes to any past or future episodes. If you enjoyed this episode, then consider leaving a review on wherever you get your podcasts. There are so many of them out there, and we would really appreciate any support that you give. Once again, if you are interested in applying for this program, they are still accepting students for the September 2021 semester. So if you are listening to this before that date, then go ahead and apply for the program. So I have to say, after covering last week's episode and this one as well, there's a lot of exciting things that are coming out of George Brown College, and it's a really good time to be a student, because it really sounds like this program and the college is just thinking about things in a future forward way, which is just going to set your career up. Anyways, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you everyone so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.